Hello everyone, my name is Riley Sin, and I will be presenting my mini lecture on Aeschylus, the poet and playwright. Before we start, I'd just like to ask you that you could bear with me and forgive me as I stumble my way through these difficult to pronounce Greek slides. Without further ado, let's begin. So, Aeschylus was born in 425 BCE in the town of Eleusis, which is located in southern Greece, just west of Athens, to Euphorion and his wife, whose name is unknown. He grew up in a family, Athenian family, with wealth and nobility, and commanded much respect in the small town that they were located in. Aeschylus had much education growing up, as did many of people in their class, and of noble descent would have had in this time. It is said that throughout his whole time of writing and growing up, he was most inspired by none other than Homer, who was alive many years before, in the 800s BCE. And responsible for at the time, popular at the time, and famous now writings and plays or poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Aeschylus grew up in a rather turbulent time politically, as Athenian democracy was in the midst of throwing out the ways of tyranny and adding in going back to democracy, as well as having to fight against self-seeking oligarchical politicians locally, and then foreign invading forces, also the Persians, known as the Persians, at the same time. So just a very rocky and time of uncertainty that he was growing up in. Although not much is known about Aeschylus, as not much of his life was recorded, I feel like a great deal can be taken from his productions and his pieces of art or poetic art and plays. First of all, I think he was noble, humble, but also cynical, just through his time of going through war. Being that he was the father of tragic plays, or tragic play theme, I personally think that this reveals a great deal about his personality and his character. Although he was writing plays through most of his life, a vast majority of his plays were written during and after his time fighting. So that just kind of gives you a glimpse of what was more or less influencing him, and I think that makes it clear why he came up to with the tragic play theme, ultimately. This being the case, I think he had a more serious and cynical and dark view of the world. However, each of his plays kind of did take a moral high ground. Maybe less of the satire plays. However, many of his other plays didn't mock many people. But yeah, took just a moral high ground is the best way to describe that. Although it is not certain, like I said earlier, there's no absolute recording of his life. It is said that his brother fought alongside him in the very first battle that he took part in, which was the Battle of Marathon, and it is said that he died in that, or he was killed in that, and Aeschylus was wounded in that battle as well, and I just think that kind of shaped his character, and I can kind of picking that up based on the time that it took for him to mention that in any of his pieces of writing or piece of work that he did. But he did end up doing that. He did mention his participation in the Battle of Marathon on the verse epitaph that he wrote for himself. So he had many, or took part in many major events at the time, and then had many accomplishments as well. Starting out militarily, he was called into battle at age 35, taking place in the Battle of Marathon in 490 BCE, where the Persians, under the reign of King Darius, invaded the shore, and the Greeks were able to push them back and were victorious in that battle. A short time later, I think it was about 8 to 10 years later, the battle, he was a part of the naval battles of Artemisium, as well as the Battle of Salamis. These were essentially the Persians attempting to get around those passes at the Battle of Thermopylae, I believe, and to try to land fighting forces, ground fighting forces on the beaches, which is a much easier direct route into Greece, or so they thought, or Athens, or so they thought. That was not the case. Both of those end in great Persian loss and defeat. Although Aeschylus was a very accomplished and decorated soldier, again, his true passion, inspired by Homer, was writing plays and poems, and he began that. He didn't really begin. He continued it through his time of military service, but really buckled down, I feel like, after that was over. Like you said, he was a boy since he started writing, and it wasn't till his late 30s, which would have been about around the year of 484, Aeschylus had won his first prize, first time at the festival of Dionysius, and he would turn around to go ahead and do that 13 times more in the next 50 years. But through this, Aeschylus had just a profound influence on the development of tragedy plays, but also just he was the father of tragedy, but also he just added so much more into just plays in general, which were very big through this time. So at this time, many plays consisted of only one actor, known as the protagonist. He would, or made up of the one actor, and then as well as a chorus of many people. However, the interaction between the actor and the chorus was very short-sighted, very, very shallow, static, and more just like a repeating, the chorus repeating what the protagonist was saying kind of relationship. Just very shallow and simple, and just not much you can do there. However, profoundly enough, Aeschylus had the crazy idea of adding yet another actor. So then you have two actors, and as simple as this sounds, had just a massive effect for the better on plays from then on out, which we are still feeling those effects today, which is just insane to think about. So with these two actors now, the chorus was used less, still used, but just not nearly as much. With the two actors being able to communicate with each other and interact with each other, this just allowed so much more construction of plot, and could just be more complex and more depth to each play. And it took the level of plays up several notches, which was crazy for the time being. And just to affirm this great idea, Aristotle commented on this new profound saying. He, meaning Aeschylus, lessened involvement of the chorus role and made the plot the leading actor. I just think this says so much about Aeschylus, that he was being recognized by fellow famous poets of the time. However, Aeschylus' talent didn't just stop at the writing part. It continued on to stage mechanics, setting up, running, running the play and making sure it goes all smoothly, as well as training the chorus and the actors, and with their songs and then their dances. He took part in nearly every aspect of the play, as well as acting, which is big. He not only trained and did stage mechanics and composed the actual play, but he was in there with it, involved with it, and acting with the other actors that were with him. And lastly, he designed and created costumes for he and his cast, which again is just profound. Not many playwrights at the time would have done this. So he was just involved in every aspect of these plays, and not surprisingly, he won first place many times, and it was so deserved. He went on to do this for the next 50 years, and through these years, the great tragedian is said to have written around 90 plays. However, unfortunately, only 7 of them have survived till today. The first of which is The Persians, composed in estimated around 472 BCE. This was the setting of this was based in a courtroom in Persia, where the Battle of Salamis was taking place, and Xerxes' mother, Atossa, and his counseling elders were in a courtroom awaiting the news of the results of the battle. A short time later, Xerxes arrives, and news did not go their way. It was a commanding defeat, as we know from history, and Xerxes had been defeated greatly. And somewhere in this dialogue between Xerxes and his mother, King Darius, Xerxes' father, had come in as a ghost and lamented with Xerxes in his hubris, which is Greek for ego or arrogance, in fighting the Greeks again in revengeance. Next is the 7 against Thebes, composed in 467 BCE. This is said to be a final play of a trilogy. However, the first 2 pieces, only small bits, were left of them from today. So the rest were just loss of time. Next is the Suppliants, also a trilogy, in which the other 2 pieces, parts of the trilogy, were lost, and that was composed in 468 BCE. Next is Prometheus Bound, thought to have been composed in between 479 and 424 BCE. With this one, authorship is actually disputed between Aeschylus and several other authors of the time. Although it's not known for sure, I just think that based on the quality and how tragic it was, that it had to have been left up to Aeschylus. But again, there's just no way of knowing this. And lastly, his last piece of work, which was composed in 458, and this was the last piece that he actually showed at the festival of Dionysius, and that was the trilogy of Oresteia, and that had 3 parts, which was Agamemnon, Kuiporoi, and the Eumenides, and each of these, had just followed one after the other, and just continued on a storyline, and it just is an incredible piece of work, and I would encourage you to look that up. So it was also in 458 BCE that our father of tragedy was killed, the tragic end to the father of tragedy. So he had made many trips throughout his life, later years actually, to the city to Sicily, many on the invites of the tyrant Hieron. I'm blanking on his name at the moment. But in his last time to Sicily, he went through the city of Gela, and that's where he died. And legend has it he was killed by a tortoise falling on his head. So Aeschylus is known to have a bald and shiny head. And as we see in this illustration, it is said that an eagle had a tortoise in its mouth, and from flying at a great altitude, dropped the tortoise on Aeschylus's head, mistaking him for a rock, and that was how they would get he would be able to eat the turtle. But anyway, this killed him, and whether it's true or not, I choose to believe it, as it just seems like a perfect end, tragic end to the father and creator of the tragedy. So thank you for listening, and this has just been a pleasure and great to be able to learn about Aeschylus and be able to share it with you guys. Thank you.